Okay, good morning. Hi, it's Joe here. It is coming up on just about a minute before 10 o'clock. I thought I'd started a minute earlier. I hope that we don't have signal issues. It looked like things were behaving itself today. We'll see. But no matter. All right, so we know about all this risk stuff going on with respect to SPC. It's been pretty well advertised. Now it's come time to see how it's all going to play out. And I'm just looking at William, Bill, yeah. Uh, well, warm front, marine front, whatever you want to call it, it's still, the bottom line is that you're dealing with a bit of a marine layer here on Long Island. Although I have to tell you, the sun has at times at least brightened the sky, and I'm actually seeing though, it's gotten pretty breezy out. So uh, this is going to be an interesting day in my book, if only because of the fact that uh, we've had a couple of cases recently where the marine layer wasn't exactly enough to keep the thunderstorms from getting here. So I'm going to be curious to see if it works today. But there are a couple of other things happening this morning that leave me, I guess, a bit perplexed with regards to how this is all playing out. I don't know that any of the models are really handling the situation today very well at all. I'm just looking at the current radar and looking at the comparing it to the HRRR and to the NAM and a few other models. I mean, the radar is actually quite busy this morning, and SPC has just thrown up its first severe thunderstorm watch for the day, and that is up in upstate New York and in northern northern Pennsylvania, west of Williamsport. So you can see it here on the view. The thing that's got me uh, worked up a bit is the fact that if you notice, the radar overlay that's on the severe thunderstorm map has a pretty active line of thunderstorms that are moving through western Pennsylvania. Now, let's use the 8-hour rule, which there's nothing magical about the 8-hour rule. Just to average the speed of movement of systems from west to east. Usually takes about 8 hours for stuff to get from Pittsburgh to New York City. So it's 10 o'clock now, 6 o'clock for thunderstorm time for New York City. Let's see if that plays. But I'm intrigued over the fact that the radar is so much busier. Now, take a look here. This is the HRRR. This is the from a couple of hours ago. Let me get the latest one. The 12Z one's a nice one to use. If you use the HRRR and you go to 6, 12, 18, and 24, you usually I'm sorry, 6, 12, 18, and 0Z. You usually get it out to about 33 hours. I mean, take a look at what it's showing here for this is for 10 o'clock. This is for between 10 and 11 o'clock, or 11 o'clock. The radar is supposed to look like this. Here is what it was supposed to look like at 10 o'clock. And take a look at what it actually does look like. I mean, that is, I just don't know that the models are really handling this right, and every one of them has sort of a different idea of how this thing plays out. I kind of like what the discussion I read yesterday from SPC saying that it's probably going to wind up being a mix of cellular thunderstorm development and some linear thunderstorm development. In other words, you're going to see some scattered cells that develop strongly, and then you're going to see perhaps a couple of broken lines of thunderstorms that'll be moving across. But none. The models just don't seem to be handling this pretty well with respect to what's actually happening. So let's go back. I want to just take a look at the 12Z run. By the way, David Schwartz, I know you gave the tornado count in the last 48 hours. When I went to bed last night at midnight, I went back to May 18th, and since May 18th, not including anything that happened overnight, by the way. So at least through midnight, 192 tornadoes in a 4-day period, which is a pretty busy period, and yet it is um, 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 it is kind of daunting, I guess, to think of the fact that it really kind of pales in comparison. Where with some of these tornado outbreaks, these really big super outbreaks that you've gotten in past history, where the number of tornadoes just always would be many, at least a couple of times higher than what we've had so far. All right, so here's the latest HRRR. Again, I just don't like the way this model is picking up or not picking up what's actually happening on the radar. And you look at what goes through here. I mean, can we be a little less inspired by the development on the model? I would be really cautious. I'm just going to be really cautious today in using any of this with respect to trying to come up with some sort of legit forecast. I think the way you handle it is that the risk is there and you go with it. I mean, even the NAM, which has that idea of the line for 10 o'clock this morning, is too weak and still too far northwest. The actual radar seems to be running a bit faster. The NAM 12 actually holds together a reasonable looking line. And by the way, if you look where the bulk of the thunderstorms occur here, it's really in the northern part of Pennsylvania through northern New Jersey, the Hudson Valley, and they even hold up as they move across Long Island. That's why I'm kind of wondering about the dynamics here. Perhaps the upper dynamics are a whole lot stronger than the models are giving them credit for, and that might help to compensate somewhat for this possible marine layer issue that exists along the coast. I think the risk area is justified. If you look at what SPC has done today, they really haven't done much of anything with respect to changing the risk area. They sort of left that map alone from what they did last night. They do headline it now, and they're talking about a possible large hail damaging winds and tornadoes for parts of the central and southern plains from the Ohio Valley into parts of the mid-Atlantic states. So I guess they're, with that, I'm going to read the discussion in a second. And let's see what they say. I usually get most of the stuff they write about. Sometimes admittedly, I don't. Scattered thunderstorms through this afternoon moving east, Ohio Valley to mid-Atlantic. Low-level warm, moist advection from the southwest expected to combine with diabatic surface heating. Now, that's one big question here, too, today is what's the daytime heating situation going to be like? Chuck Cardillo, you mentioned that you've got a fair amount of sun up your way. Looking at the satellite this morning, it seemed like once you got over to go more into east into PA, there was a lot of breaks in the cloud cover. So who's going to see that, or who's going to be sitting in clouds for much of the day? It's going to make a big difference. All right, so they start. I love when they pull up all this technical stuff, and some of the acronyms I'm not too familiar with. You know what? I'm going to have to just the CAPE numbers. They're talking about 800 to 1500 joules per kilogram range, potentially reaching 2000 on a brief localized basis. That's okay. It's not off the wall. Mixed subcloud layer, strong severe thunderstorm winds, as well as maintenance to the surface of severe hail. All right. Well, I mean, it sounds like just a quick scan of this. It just does sound like they're fairly bullish. Isolated to widely scattered thunderstorms, also offering some severe threat, may form behind the initial arc this afternoon as well, but sufficient destabilization of the air mass recovery to support an organized severe threat with this regime remains quite uncertain. Okay, so this is something that I've pointed out many times, that you got to be careful when you get the stuff that runs out ahead. So oftentimes what happens is you get the atmosphere winds up getting destable. Instead of getting more unstable, it gets more stable. In other words, the first impulse goes by and just basically zaps all the energy out of the atmosphere, so that when the second round of energy that's supposed to trigger off the main development, it doesn't have a whole lot left for it to work on. So we got to watch. That's good. That's going to be important to make sure that we don't. Are we going to see, uh, all the juice getting taken out in some places, so that when the main catalyst comes along, it's looking around to find something to work with, and there just isn't much there that's left. So, look, bottom line is we know what the risk area is today. Okay, we've got enhanced risk across much of Pennsylvania, except for the Northwest. Well, let's say the northern third. The eastern edge of enhanced goes to about just into the westernmost New Jersey counties, barely. You have the slight risk to just west of New York City. You've got the marginal risk into western Long Island, and then of course points northward and extending southward from there. So we'll wait and see if they do some adjusting. There was a tornado watch up that they put up this morning for parts of southern Missouri, and those came down pretty quickly. But they're gone now, so that part of the equation is quiet further to the west. And of course, as I said, we've got this severe thunderstorm. What happened to it? That's weird. Hold on a second. Just a second. This is bizarre. Okay, there it is. I was thinking that, I saw them put a watch up. And, uh, yeah, it's there. Okay. By the way, when you use SPC sites, the side menu is great because they do update this. So then they're always sending out all sorts of different discussions. If you notice back a couple of hours ago, they put out earlier this morning potential severe thunderstorm watch discussion for what is now an actual watch. Okay, let's move forward. Let's talk about the weekend. I didn't see anything overnight that kind of changed my perspective here with regards to the weekend outlook. The way it's going to play is as advertised. Much of the time, I think we're going to see rain-free conditions. We are also going to deal with the chance for some thunderstorms Saturday night during the overnight. Uh, I think they're gone by early Sunday morning. The Dayside Sunday to me looks dry, mostly dry. There might be some isolated or scattered cells during the day. Sunday will be the warmest day. We'll see temperatures up into the 80s in many locations, including coastal areas. And then another front with another chance of storms during Sunday night, followed by what should be a nice day on Memorial Day, mid 70s to low 80s. Saturday, 70s with the sunshine and some arriving clouds. Meanwhile, take a look at what's going on. We got this next round of energy, not nearly as impressive as what developed into the Plainstorm a few days ago, but you still got this deep trough in the west, which means more snow in Colorado and Utah and into Wyoming. And some of this is elevation driven, and in some places it isn't. I've got Ruthless Goat might, I don't know if he's on this morning. I did see a post from him last night talking about, they're still dealing with considerable cold conditions in parts of in much of eastern Colorado. It's just been quite an incredible month for that part of the country in the Central Rockies. So here's our front for today. It goes by. We've got a fairly wrapped up low in the Gulf of Maine. So think back to a couple of days ago when we had those gusty winds. Probably a repeat performance here for Friday, although I think temperatures will be a little bit higher in the 70s rather than being in the 60s to near 70 for daytime highs. Saturday looks good. Sunshine pretty much of the day. The high moves out. Here comes the front. Now, the front for Saturday night into Sunday morning, we're not going to see as much of a south wind ahead of it along the coast. The isobars almost immediately go west-southwest as the front approaches. So that might increase the chance that we could see some thunderstorms reaching coastal areas. Either way, I think there probably will be some with this front going by. And then we have to wait because there's another front coming down from upstate New York that's going to move through here for Sunday night with a few cells, and then that moves out. High pressure builds in for Memorial Day, which I think for the most part, other than some maybe leftover early morning clouds, we will go to some sunshine. And then beyond that, of course, we talked yesterday about the fact that we've got the ridge in the east. Onshore flow, any kind of big high in Canada seems to be non-existent. So we should be able to get very warm Tuesday and probably Wednesday. The question is that the GFS is suddenly has this plains system. If you go back, you can watch this plains low early next week. Some of that energy comes over the top and runs up into New England. So it does have the possibility of some showers and storms here late Tuesday. It looks like a weak frontal boundary that goes by, but still maintains more of a westerly flow here as we go into Wednesday. So I think that would probably mean that we've got two very warm and probably humid days to deal with Tuesday and Wednesday, particularly Wednesday. And after that, warm front, cold front combination, we do get a little bit of a backdoor on the GFS later on Wednesday night into Thursday. A little bit of a high there builds up in the Maritimes, and you get a nose that pokes down through New England. I don't know how far south that gets or if it's even real, but going into the end of next week, we bring through a front, and looks like we'll have, that'll go by along about late Thursday. And at this point, question marks regarding next weekend, they're still on the table. By the way, I said this on a couple of I said this on a couple of live streams already. So in case you missed it, or you haven't been on the live streams lately, let me just make this point with regards to the models and with respect to the tropics. We are now at the point, of course, that we are going to start seeing, and already have been seeing, models spinning up tropical systems in the long range on almost every single run on the GFS. It's been trying to show something coming out of the Caribbean and maybe spinning its way up into the Gulf of Mexico, one form or another. It's all out in the La La Land long range. So you really don't want to waste your energy other than to look at it and get a good laugh out of it. You don't want to waste your energy because you can't make any kind of serious forecast with respect to when the models spit those things up. And you're going to see them make various appearances in social media. Just ignore. The thing to look for when we go into the hurricane season, and over the next few weeks, because this is climatologically, we're talking about the Northwest Caribbean. That's the spot where things get going during the early part of the hurricane season, in the early part of June, and then that area of development starts to slowly spread out a bit across the Gulf and maybe even up out into just north of Cuba into the Bahamas. But it's really that area in the Northwest Caribbean that you kind of focus your attention on. One of the things you want to look for in the upper air is you want the upper high to be over the Gulf states, not in the Gulf of Mexico itself, but you want the upper high to be over the Gulf states so that you have higher than normal pressures over the mainland of the United States northward. But as a result of having that upper ridge in that position, you wind up with lower than normal pressures going across the Gulf of Mexico, but particularly down in the area of the Northwest Caribbean. That's how at least that is an upper air scenario that's part of the equation. So if you see that look, and we'll show these looks when we look at the upper air maps, if we start to see that look where there's a tendency for higher pressures to be further north, lower pressures to be further to the south, kind of, I guess, think about how we talk about blocking, where you get higher pressures up in the Atlantic north of 60 degrees north going up toward the poles, and lower pressures down where it displaces the jet stream south. Well, we're kind of talking about the same thing in a sense. You want that upper high. There's no real, there's no jet stream flow to speak of when you get down into the deep tropics. Tropical storms, like, you want those light wind conditions, but there's not that 60, 70, 80 knot jet stream going west to east like there is across the United States, or even higher when you get into the winter months. But if you wind up seeing a situation where the upper high is built over the mainland of the United States across the Gulf states, it's going to favor lower than normal pressures in the Caribbean, and that's one thing you would see with regards to tropical storm development. If we start to see that going forward, then maybe we could give some credence to the possibility that you could see an early system pop up. You guys are talking about snow blowers. Use the snow blower to remove the pollen. Nice. The oak pollen is. I have a little bit of a problem with oak pollen. Everything else doesn't bother me very much, but it seems to be coming down on schedule. But it's not causing me any huge issues at the moment. Okay, so we've got Joyce Mack on, Scott Briller, Chuck Cardillo, William Uber is on. Let's just make sure I got everybody. I did see David Schwartz a little earlier, Jason Schaefer. I don't know if all of you guys are still here or not. I'm going to, by the way, I'm thinking, and Izzy D, I can't forget you, buddy. I'm thinking that squeezing in a morning live stream on Patreon for you Patreon folks, even if it's only for about 15 or 20 minutes, is a lot. It kind of works for me, if only because of my schedule. At this point of the morning, and in about another 40 minutes or so, I'm going to have to start thinking about jumping in the shower and getting dressed and hitting the road so that I can drive the 75 to 90 minutes that I spend on the road to get to FiOS in Rybrook. And then I got to get my stuff ready for the shows there. So where I have free and relaxed time is in the mornings, or quote unquote relaxed time, where I'm not in a rush and juggling 10 things at once like I am a lot of times during the afternoons and evenings between doing my TV stuff, writing posts for my website, doing live streams, not just one live stream, but 2 live streams with Joe Rayo. Now that we brought the Joe and Joe show back up, I'm thinking I may just wind up keeping it on YouTube. I think it actually works better for me and for the audience in general to just keep it on YouTube, because I've just gotten really absolutely fed up with all the nonsense that's going on with respect to Facebook. So I'm thinking YouTube, which is a much friendlier environment and a much easier platform to use, is where we may wind up staying. All right, so the morning Patreon live streams, I think that's the route. I know that doesn't make everybody happy, but unfortunately, anytime I pick, there's going to be a problem for somebody. If I do them in the evening, they come too close to the YouTube live stream. I don't always have that window to do them. And then who's not home from work? Who's on the road? Who can't watch it? And I get that. So this has got the mornings. The morning is where there's a void. You'll get the live streams in the evenings with everybody else. In the mornings, you'll get the additional live stream for you Patreon folks. And of course, you can always message me direct. That's the message feature on Patreon. Send me a message. I usually try and get back as quick as I can. And if I don't answer right away, it's because I'm on the road. And many of you are friends with me on Facebook, so you can always message me on Messenger. I have no issue with that whatsoever. If I usually, like I said, I usually get back to you get back quickly. But if I'm not answering, it's because I got something's going on. Either I'm on the road, or I'm recording some weather stuff, or whatever it is. Okay. You just drove 4 hours to catch the live stream, Robert Brown. Okay, I'm inspired. Okay, thank you. I really hope you didn't drive 4 hours just to hear my live stream, because after all, you can listen to it on a replay. All right. Joe and Joe on YouTube. I think you know what, I think it just works better. And thanks, Scott. I really very kind of you to say. I'm trying to just, I try to accommodate everybody. I know the saying is, if you try to make everybody happy, you make the only person you make no one happy and you make yourself miserable. But that's not how I'm approaching all of this. I'm just trying to find a place where it all fits. So I think this is where it fits best. I may not necessarily be able to do it every single day on the mornings. I'm trying to save it for times when it's important. When weather is really active. I don't want to just come on a live stream and just say, hey, the weather's great for the next 5 days. So not that we don't like nice weather, we do, but I just, to save firepower and to give me a little bit of downtime as well. Jason Schaefer, fiber optics has a long commute if you think about it. Well, that's quite true. And you do. That's a very good point. And you and I are working together Saturday, so I will see you then. I will see you on Saturday, doing a little picks time the next 2 Saturdays, and I'll also be there on Father's Day. So anyhow, have a great day. I'm going to be interested to see if my ideas on these thunderstorms this afternoon work out. That we might actually wind up with something more robust than what the models are generally indicating. I think that's the way I would play this. And I'm not 100% sold on the fact that these thunderstorms are going to fall apart when they get to the coast. Maybe the upper dynamics, with that strengthening low to the north, perhaps the upper dynamics might compensate to some degree with regards to the normal marine layer weakening. All right, folks, have a great rest of your morning. Travel safely. We will see you tonight. YouTube live stream at 6 o'clock and a Joe and Joe show at roughly 9:20 Eastern time.